Hi, I'm Adam Burston, and today I'll be presenting on Piaget's stages of child and adolescent development. Okay, a little background information on John Piaget. He was alive from 1896 until 1980. He was a psychologist who studied child cognitive or intellectual development. So that's the ability to think. All right, his relevance to our course today in the field of education is the theory of cognitive development that he came up with in 1936. This was based on research that he did on children, and what he came up with was a 4-stage cognitive development that children go through as they age. Okay, it was very fundamental at the time because prior to him coming up with these stages, the belief was that children were just small adults who just didn't have as complicated thought processes as adults had. So there was no belief in any developmental stages, so there was no basis for education. Okay, what he came up with was a 4-stage system that children age through, that children progress through as they age. And those are the sensor-motor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage, and the formal operational stage. Okay, his 4 stages of cognitive development progression were based on growth through assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation is fitting knowledge into what is already known. So you have a basis of knowing things. For example, I have 2 balls down here. They're both round. I know something round is a ball. Okay, now I may see both balls, I'll just call them ball. I know this is a soccer ball, so I may see the basketball and I'll just say it's round, oh, it's a soccer ball. That's not correct though, so I need to accommodate, which is accommodation, is modifying existing knowledge to adapt to newly learned knowledge. Okay, so it doesn't fit into what I already know as this being a soccer ball. The soccer ball I can see has spots that are black on the white ball. Basketball is orange. So now I have new information which I've accommodated to fit into what I already know. So I've now modified my knowledge, and now I know this is a soccer ball, this is a basketball. And this is the basis for the way people develop throughout Piaget's stages. The first stage is the sensor-motor stage, and that people go through when they're about 0 to 2 years old, so that's infants. And what they do is they use senses to explore objects. Those are your senses: taste, touch, feel. That's why when you see little kids, they'll be moving around, grabbing stuff. They might put stuff in their mouth. They hear things. All right, the main key to this stage is that the children do not understand object permanence, meaning that if they cannot see an object, they don't know that it still exists. So for example, I may have a child playing with my keys. I may be dingling the keys in front of the kid. Then I'll go put them under the table here. The kid may start to cry or whatever. They don't know those keys still exist. They don't realize I just put them away and they can come back. Another example would be they might be spending time with their mother or father. Then the mother or father walks into a different room and they may start crying. They don't understand that just because that parent walked into a different room, they still exist. In their world, if it's not in front of them, it doesn't exist. The next stage that people go through as they develop is the pre-operational stage. And this is between 2 and 7 years old. All right, it begins with children being able to speak. That's when they start making the transition into this pre-operational stage. A key element here is that children can now think symbolically, which means the ability to represent an object with another object, which is imagination. For example, I remember something from my past. My parents, when I was young, got a big stereo system, and it came in this big box. So I had the box, and then you could play in the box. The box wasn't just a box; it was a fort. It was a spaceship, whatever it was. You could imagine that box was something else. And that's what being able to think symbolically is. In this stage, children are still thinking egocentrically, which means they don't understand the viewpoints of others. It's just me. What I know is what goes for everyone else. That's their belief. So if I like to watch TV and I like to watch a certain show, everyone else must like that same show. Or another example, this is a stage where kids will go through, they'll cover their eyes, and because I can't see you, you can't see me. They actually believe this because that's the development level that they're at. The next stage of development is the concrete operational stage. This is between 7 and 11 years old. Children can now begin to think logically. This logic can be applied only to physical and concrete objects at this stage, which is why it's concrete operational. Concrete, so meaning they could do addition, they can use blocks and say, all right, I have 2 blocks here, 3 blocks here, that's 5 blocks. One of the key elements here is that they do not understand conservation, which is meaning that an object remains the same in number, size, or weight regardless of its appearance. I have a YouTube video I'm going to play here that demonstrates this concept. Okay, what you see here, the audio is not working, but what you see here is there's 2 glasses of water with the same height, and the child recognizes that when they're in that same glass, they're at the same height. However, you see the lady pours one glass into another glass where the water level is a little bit higher, and now the child identifies this glass as having more liquid in it because it's taller, even though they both came from the same level when they were in the same glasses. So that's one demonstration of how a child does not understand the concept of conservation. Another would be if I had 2 blocks of clay that are the same size, and the child can identify that they're both the same size, then I smashed one down and made it flat. The child may say that the flat one has less clay than the one that's in the proper box. The 4th stage of development is the formal operational stage. This comes 11 years old and older. All right, and at this stage, the child can use logic to apply to abstract thought using symbolic representation. This would be being able to do algebra, whereas the letter X isn't a letter, it represents a number. They're understanding these processes now. It's also the ability to think hypothetically, what if? So we can get into deeper thoughts where things don't have to be so structured. We can start exiting into other realms where what if this situation occurred? What if that situation occurred? They can begin those thought processes, and that makes sense to them at this stage. Piaget's effects on modern education. So prior to Piaget's stages of development, we just delivered knowledge to children. This is what you need to know, go ahead and know it. Now there's creation of knowledge, where we understand the stages and what children can think about at those stages. So now we can deliver content based on what they're capable of processing cognitively, and they can create the knowledge instead of just being thrown knowledge at. Also, it gives us a systematic progression for learning based on a child's cognitive ability. By understanding what a child can process at a given point in time throughout their life, we can present proper material for them to create new knowledge based on what material we're presenting. Here are some sources that I use for the presentation and further reading. This one at the top, this is The Origins of Intelligence in Children. This was John Piaget's original work. The other one is just further reading based on his works and more summaries and different examples based on his teachings. Some follow-up questions. These are things we'll discuss later in the class on the forums. So 1, describe a time in your life that you had to assimilate and accommodate for new information. 2, what is an example of object permanence? 3, what is the main development from the concrete operational to the formal operational stage? 4, why is the ability to use symbolic representation important for higher level thinking? And 5, how does Piaget's theory of development differ from previous thinking, and do you believe that it changes the way we educate children? Why or why not? So later on in the class, we're going to go on the forums and we're going to go ahead and get into some discussions based on these. That is all.